What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie298 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And here's another one of those story time videos. Only this time it's not purely embarrassing about myself and it doesn't involve my sex life. So that's probably an improvement over the last few. But these stories are about landlords. Love them, hate them. I personally hate them. Until I posted something on Twitter, I was under the impression that everyone hated landlords, but turns out there's a lot of people that are willing to take a bullet for them. I posted this joke tweet to Twitter where I said, the internet believes streamers literally do nothing and people give them money, and landlords are like, hold my beer, because I can do nothing better. I thought that was a sentiment that was pretty universal, and I'll explain why I thought that later in the video. But I can say personally, I rented probably from 10 different places in my lifetime, and every landlord we've ever had did not want to do any work. They didn't want to take care of the grounds. They didn't want to take care of the house. They didn't want to do repairs. They wanted to collect your check, a bunch of other people's checks, and then just move on. Personal attention was just not a thing we got. I don't know why. Maybe I just rented at the wrong places, but that's been my experiences, and I'll tell you those experiences later in the video. But a lot of people thought this was a really bad take, and I'm surprised by that, and you might be one of them. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below, have you had really good landlords? Have they been above and beyond? Have they been coming by to check up on you and giving you muffins and stuff and doing repairs really quickly and making the place a super nice place to live? Because I just never personally experienced that. If you have, I want to hear about it. But some people, and I'm not going to call anybody out here because I don't want drama, like that's stupid, right? But some people were like, not all landlords. Not all landlords. And of course it's not all landlords. The same way it's not all men or all women or all white people, but it's still worth discussing from time to time. And I think it's okay to make jokes about it. Even if it's 5% of landlords, 10% of landlords. Why not make the joke? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine to make that joke. But it was really polarizing and entertaining on Twitter. And you got to remember how I use my Twitter. It is like the public toilet that I scrawl my stupid shit on the side of, knowing the people that come in and read it are going to be polarized. That's how I've treated my Twitter now for like 5 years. It's just a place where I fart out my brain dumps. Half the people went into defensive mode saying, you know, landlords are great and I love landlords and maybe I'm a landlord too, and landlords are good people and you shouldn't be mean to landlords, right? And then the other half just called those people bootlickers and attacked them and called them every name under the sun, and it was wild. I did not expect that stupid tweet to light that fire. Now, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, but my anecdotal evidence proves me right. Most of my renting has been done in the state of Arkansas, and Arkansas is considered to be the worst state in the nation to rent. In fact, there's several documentaries about it here on YouTube if you care to watch them. So it's no surprise that I have a bad impression of landlords. And I'm sure there's some great landlords in Arkansas. I think I talked to one last night on the phone. But that said, there's definitely some not great landlords in the area too. The story that I want to tell today that I think really drives home the annoyance I've had in the state of Arkansas involves this place right here called the Vineyard on Garland, which was not what it was called when I rented it in the 90s. And I know it looks really nice now. This place was not nice when we rented it, I promise you. In the mid-90s, it was a slum. Me and my best friend lived there for about 2 years when they started renovating the place. And they did not wait until people started moving out when they began the renovations, both on the outside of the building, so they were banging on your windows when you were trying to sleep and stuff like that, but then also individual apartments as people's contracts went up and they moved out, they would go in, they'd tear everything out, they'd rebuild it, and you were not allowed to move out. If you had 6 months left on your lease, then for the next 6 months, you were going to deal with construction at the place you were living. Now, in the state of Arkansas, our hands are kind of tied in that situation because if we try to move out, they're going to pursue us for the rest of that lease, right? And if we fail to pay our rent because we're protesting or something, you can actually be treated like a criminal in the state of Arkansas. The police can grab you and arrest you and put cuffs on you and remove you from the premises. It's not great. So we pretty much had to keep paying the lease. And I know maybe you could move to another place and pay both this lease off and that other lease, but we were poor. I was making no money. My roommate was making no money. We were working minimum wage jobs. I was washing dishes at a Mexican restaurant. He was doing custodial work at the university. We weren't making money. So we didn't have that option. So picture this. In order to live in this place, we had to find a place to park down the street because all of the housing parking spots were taken up by construction vehicles and machines and stuff. There were loud machines going as early as 6, 7 a.m. They would go on until the middle of the afternoon, the middle of the evening. There were people banging on the walls in the apartment next to you, above you, below you, constantly. There were people outside your window working on the facade to make it look like this place isn't a slum when it is on the inside until they renovate it. But eventually they started working on the pipes, which meant we were going to have to spend a few days without water. And that's frustrating, but you know what? I grew up poor. The water got turned off sometimes. I know how to take water from Walmart and boil it on a stove and use that to get clean. That's not a big deal. It's a little weird about flushing the toilet, though. That's bad. I talked to the landlord and I'm like, hey, man, can we please move out? Because this is unlivable. And he says, sure, just pay out the next 2 months worth of rent, the last 2 months of your lease, and you can move out. And I'm like, but I can't afford to move out and also pay you for a second place that I'm not going to be living in. And this place isn't habitable. And he's like, well, I'll pursue. I'm going to make sure I get that money. So we're stuck there. But on the second day of them working on the pipes, they start blowing them out or something along that lines. And sewage began to invade our apartment. This brown, disgusting sludge started coming up from our bathtub, from the toilet, and filling the floor of our apartment, leaking out into the hallway. So me and my roommate woke up to the smell of feces and God knows what else just invading our apartment. As we're inspecting the damage, it begins to rain from the ceilings because the same thing has happened to the apartment above us, and that is now seeping through the ceiling above us. So nowhere is safe now. It's a complete shit show, pun intended. We called the landlord and he showed up to survey the damage, and he informed us that he would have it cleaned up within the next 24 hours. And I asked him politely, I'm like, hey man, we don't want to stay here. Can you please get us a hotel for the night? Motel 6, $30 a month so we have a place to sleep and like stay safe so we're not breathing sewage because we don't have anywhere else to go. And he's like, look, if you want to pay for your own hotel, you can. You don't have to stay here, but I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to reimburse you. And I just felt like, you know, if we're paying this guy $500 a month rent and the house is not going to be usable for 30 days, $30 seems really reasonable to me, but I don't know, man. He wasn't feeling reasonable that day. So we finally bit the bullet. We scrounged up as much money as we could. We pawned a couple of things, and we found an apartment complex almost right across the street, made sure it wasn't owned by the same person, and then we rented from them and moved everything in during that 24-hour period. And I spoke with the landlord as we were moving out, and he said, you decided to move out? And I said, yes, and you will not be getting these last 2 months' rent. And he's like, well, I will pursue it, just so you know. And I'm like, man, feel free, buddy. Feel free. We're broke. Feel free to take us to court. We got nothing anyway. So that's how that ended. He did, however, send us some threatening letters, which we ended up taking to a lawyer as a free consultation. And the lawyer informed us that we had absolutely no recourse whatsoever and we should just go ahead and pay it or it was going to hit our credit. And that's how it works in the state of Arkansas. So my opinion on landlords ain't so great. But because of this Twitter thread, I talked to some landlords who say that they went above and beyond during COVID to make sure people had a place to stay. They froze rent, they froze eviction, they helped people out, they got them food, they got them the things they needed. If you were one of those landlords, and I talked to one of you last night in DMs on Twitter, I talked to another on the phone, that's amazing. You're amazing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful that landlords like you exist. Just know landlords like I described also exist, and that's why you have a bad reputation. And as long as landlords like that exist, and as long as the laws are there to support that type of landlord and not your type of landlord, you're probably always going to have that same reputation. I'm sorry to say. That's probably just how it's going to be. If you want to get rid of that reputation, you're going to have to get rid of the bad landlords, and you're going to have to get rid of the laws that support that kind of landlord. Then we'll love you, I promise. Let me end this video by saying that if you're the type of landlord that charges a fair rent and you take good care of the place and make repairs timely and you make it a fun, safe experience for your tenants to live, and you know what? You earned that property and it just wasn't given to you, and you're doing a good job taking care of it, I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you for the things you've achieved, the things that you've earned, and I'm so grateful that you put a little goodness into the world for your tenants. I'm not one of these anti-landlord guys. I genuinely am not. I just don't like the assholes. I don't like assholes in general. Now, as usual, this is one man's opinion. I know it could be wrong, and this turned out to be quite the hot take. So I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know down below. Are you a landlord? Are you one of the good ones or are you one of the bad ones? Do you have a good landlord? Do you have a bad landlord? Are you lucky enough to be like me and own your own property so the only thing you're dealing with is the banks? Let me know in the comments section below. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I will speak with you again soon.